So Nathan Robinson, he's the owner of Current Affairs, which is a socialist publication, came out with an interesting article about NFTs titled "Are NFTs any more stupid than anything else?" And I'm going to read this article, but it's interesting that he's grappling with the NFT idea, NFT phenomenon, and but the thing is, him being a socialist and being that dogmatic about it, he's trying to put it within like the status in class. He's coming in from that angle because most likely he sees all issues or all human phenomena from that angle. And I think NFTs are more interesting than that. They don't have to be like a status, rich people versus the poor people thing. I didn't personally, I didn't really understand NFTs, um, but I'm actually coming around to them as kind of a possible neat thing. And it they don't have to be. They don't see like he's gonna talk about the excesses of like people bidding up some NFT for $65 million, but there's actually a good case it could be made that you can there's no set price. Let's say like a local artist or whatever artist you like does sketches, and he makes a sketch and he mints it for $1, $2, $5, and you can support him. You can buy the NFT, and you could just put your name on the blockchain that hey you believe in this artist, you think this guy's cool and guy or girl, and here you got a little token appreciation that you have your name associated with that drawing. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm sure I'm sure you can probably go back to caveman times where other cavemen asked somebody to paint something on the cave wall, or in Italy during the Renaissance, some rich patrons commissioned or had like these artists pay, you know what I mean, like commissioning their work. But here there's no set price. It could be anything, doesn't matter. And if you want to talk about why some things went to 65 million or 100 million, well, the thing is you have to understand is if it's a famous artist, I mean, you can bid up any kind of NFT you want to a super high amount, but people are not going to do that because it's not going to hold their value. People buy famous art from famous artists as an investment. Well, yeah, as bragging rights, social status, maybe Nathan Robinson's right with that. There is a bit of social status coming along with buying famous artists. But a lot of it's also partly to do with so much inflation going on with fiat currencies. These artworks are actually a good investment. And besides the fact that, I mean, they keep their value. If you buy a Van Gogh, I'm not saying year over year is going to be the same price. You might go down in price, but over 10, 20, 30 years, it's not going to go down in value. Probably because the Federal Reserve or these fiat currencies the governments are printing a lot of money, debasing the currency, and this is a tangible asset like real estate, like famous artists. So if you buy into a famous NFT, well, it can hold its value. Presumably, I don't know. The NFTs haven't been around for that long, but if you buy the Beeple's famous NFT, or not the whole thing, but buy shares of it, I'm sure it becomes its own little trade. Like, let's say if you divide up some famous artist makes an NFT, and somebody divides it up into like 10,000 shares. Well, I'm sure these shares are going to be traded between people, and there's going to be a market for them, and hey, they might not lose value. So buying like 10% or 5% or 2% of that artwork might, in the long run, might be better than sitting in cash, or might be better than investing in stocks for certain, within a certain time frame. So who knows? The thing is that it's a lot more deeper and interesting than that, but Nathan here is going to try to boil it down to class politics, but why not? You know, let's see what I mean. Like it's still interesting from his angle. He goes in earlier this year. The news media began reporting on a strange phenomenon in the art world. Instead of selling physical paintings, some artists were now selling digital files, with many forgoing an astonishing amount. A JPEG file of work with a digital artist Beeple had sold for $69 million at auction house Christie's. Yeah, a pixel graphic smoking a pipe sold over $7 million. The works are sold with so-called non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. All right, so he's explaining that, showing some examples. What the hell is going on here? Why would you pay for a digital image of a man smoking a pipe? Couldn't you just screenshot it? But that's the same thing as saying, like, couldn't you just the Mona Lisa or Van Gogh? They have super, super high-res photos of them online. Could you just screenshot it and save it to your desktop? You could, right? Do you own the Mona Lisa or that? Like, no. So the work that has sold for $69 million at Christie's is available to look up for free on the internet. How does it make any sense to pay this astronomical sums? Is the NFT some kind of unique derangement of our time? Sorry. What it looks like is a unique kind of stupidity at first may just be the latest example of very common kind of stupidity. I remember when I was in middle school, Pokemon cards were hugely popular. Cards with particularly rare Pokemon on them would sell for fortunes. Yeah, so is Beanie Babies, sure. Humans do that. Humans like to collect things. Humans like to trade rare things with each other. And yeah, they would bid up prices. Oh, here we go. He guessed it. He's now mentioning Beanie Babies later on in his article. We're used to these type of crazes, and it's easy to see why they happen. Market value is subjective, and sometimes people do come to share the valuation of those around them. Everyone in school wants a certain pair of sneakers, so I want that pair of sneakers regardless of whether I would make the same choice independently without the influence of others. I actually remember a moment as a kid where I wanted to get a rare Pokemon card, even I bought a pack of the damn things. Even I had no interest in the game. I remember distinctly the excitement of taking off the metallic wrapping and rifling through it to see if it was a good one in there. Nope, bumpkins. The NFT collecting trend just transfers this silly game to the digital realm. It's not that much different than Pokemon card. We may have a sense that a digital image is less real than a stack of plastic pellets. And in one way that's true, but in both the cases, it's the value that's being attached to the possession that's being generated psychologically. Well, just in that, doesn't it debunk Marx's labor theory of value? That just unwittingly, he criticizing it, but it's kind of funny to mention that like Marx had this labor theory of value that the worth of a product is how much labor time somebody puts into it. But you can clearly see that some things are worth $65 billion or $1 million, but it's not like the artist put in $65 million worth of effort into creating that. So just right there, you can see that people value things. People's effort in creating or labor in creating something doesn't imply its value. It's non-coherent. A Beanie Baby has a market value just because of a commodity of people willing to pay money for it. And when they cease to be willing, in case to be worth anything, it's not necessarily more absurd people to value an online picture of a monkey than a real-world stack of beanies, or see a huge difference between a watch that says Rolex and a watch that doesn't. Arguments can be made that the NFT is a slightly similar thing to attach a value than Pokemon cards. After all, Pokemon cards is a physical object, and so long as you have it, other people don't. It's your property, and traditionally, core private property rights is the right to exclude others from use. If someone sells you, oh yeah, I get it. NFTs are digital, So anybody can use it and anybody can save that image to their computer or print it out or whatever, put it on the frame. NFT is far stranger than a thing. You're not even buying the copyright to the image you're buying. You're just buying essentially your name on a ledger that's saying you own the thing without it being clear what ownership means in this context. You can't call the police and have them prevent someone from copying it or using your NFT. It's the right to have your name listed in the owner as an essentially reproduced digital thing without that listing conferring any rights to you. It's worth paying money for. What do people who buying these things think they are getting? The full answer requires psychologists, but my guess is that they want to getting a feeling that a thing belongs to them. The same as when you purchase an asteroid or a plot of land in Utah that you could never develop. It feels like yours, and there are others willing to recognize it as yours. Then you're getting status. Imagine, for instance, a painting that is housed in a museum, but technically owned by a private collector. Let's say the artist sold the painting with a stipulation that it can always had to be housed in the museum, regardless of who owned it. That owning the painting might mean, in practice, little more than publicly having one's name attached to the painting, being seen as the person who owns it. Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, but that happens with buildings, university buildings, and charities. How many university buildings were constructed thanks to some rich donor that wants to have, being immortalized and have their name plastered on top of it? Yeah, that's true. So if you can attach your name to a super famous work of art, well, we're human and we want that. So in essence, it is status in one way. In one way, it is status, but in another way, it's also could be economic. That you would think that it's possible. I mean, for physical art, for famous artists, for sure, that these artworks, if you buy them, hold their value and actually appreciate sometimes more than the stock market. We have yet to see. I mean, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the NFTs that people are buying for $10, $1,000, their value is going to go to zero for sure, 100%. But some of the very famous internet artwork or whatever, most likely they not. Who knows? They might hold up in value. They might appreciate. Somebody else might want to buy it for more. We might wonder why anyone would want to spend money on this, but the answer is that they're not really buying a thing. They're buying a social recognition. They're doing conspicuous consumption, where one buys things to display how much money they have, or to remind themselves how much money they have. But this is, you can criticize it, but this is a core thing of humans. This is a human nature. Socialism, the socialist man, or whatever Marx is living in a socialist country. You're not going to change genetics. You're not going to change human DNA that craves status. So what would a socialist looking through a socialist think of this? And I mean, what's the solution? It's also the case that just because a thing can be easily reproduced, there's no reason to buy the original. People want the original artworks, even though they may be indistinguishable from well-executed forgeries, because they want authenticity. It may have been possible to produce a Pokemon card, go at a good print shop. These would have been fake because they were not produced by a Pokemon card company. People who discover that their diamonds are fake have the same necklace on Tuesday and they had on Monday when they thought their jewels are real, but then they cannot look at it the same way because the quality of being real is that what they cared about. But the value attached to things like, did an artist hand touch this, or is the chemical composition of this X or Y, is purely subjective. Likewise, that people have knockoff ape avatar will know that they have a knockoff, and people who paid money for a real one will know it's official. There are plenty of reasons one might buy an NFT, then even though it's like buying an imaginary dog. I do not think there are a good reason, personally. I would ever waste a penny of this nonsense and think it's like setting your money on fire. But rather than seeing this as some strange new development whereby things are objectively immaterial, valueless, are given value, we should instead see this as a trend, an extreme example to illustrate a common kind of human irrationality whereby worthless trinkets are invented with magical properties. Status goods take value independent of their practical use value. Use value. Like everything is like everything is like a factory machine that produces widgets, or whatever, other anything else doesn't, you know what I mean? Like in like the socialist framework, doesn't have use, therefore has zero value. One buys a Tesla particularly because of its qualities as an electric car, but partly because it's a Tesla. Owning it grants entrance into a community of high status people. So we can see why even something that is, in practical terms, nothing at all could attain market value if it's branded well enough. We could imagine a company is called the Club, and for $10,000 they'll put your name down and say you're in the club. That's all they do. Let's skip ahead. In a way, I describe it to my fault, family members and friends alike. If people buy Supreme clothes or they buy Rolex, there are all these ways to tell everyone that you're wealthy, but a lot of these things can actually be faked. With an NFT, you can't fake it. He's quoting somebody here from the New York Times. Well, you can't fake it because I could draw one of these damn penguins. But the point is that inside a group, those who knew real penguins from non-real penguins, easier way to spotting outsiders than the fake Rolexes. So he's still stuck up on authenticity. The absurd thing here, then, it's not really that people are paying for digital art. If digital art costs $1, then phenomena would be less mysterious to us. The absurd thing is that huge sums are flying around, and that's happening because some people are just too damn rich. Here we go. We're bringing it back to their socialist roots. You have got too much money to spend. The insane thing about someone paying $120K for a piece of art, consisting of a banana taped to a wall, is not that they paid for it. Was $5, is they might understand it. It's an insane thing that people can spend that much on something so stupid while there's people who have nothing. But the thing is, if you're a socialist, right, don't you want everybody to be ultra rich? I mean, in ideal socialist society, everybody would be super rich, super wealthy, right? Isn't that your goal? But I don't know. Something about is it their disdain for inequality, or is it their disdain for people just being rich, successful, and flaunting it? I don't know. It's a psychological issue. NFTs themselves are less disturbing than inequality, but it's the market for NFTs that reveals a horribly unjust distribution of wealth. That would be because whether people were buying material things like McMansion's Teslas, postage stamps, Beanie Babies, or imaginative digital things like NFTs, cryptocurrencies, and land in computer games, the fact that there's a class of people who have too much money, and then this is evidenced by the fact that they are able to fritter it away on nonsense while other people are struggling to acquire the basics. But here's the thing. Here's the problem. If you start redistributing money to where you think who have too much and who deserve, who don't, usually as history as an example, that basically you get the worst of both worlds. Rich people flee, it won't have any money, but just everybody's going to be dirt poor, because you have to let people, if they work and they produce and they create value. First of all, money is not a zero-sum game. Just because somebody has rich and is blowing money doesn't mean that somebody else has less. If you create an NFT, like if somebody creates an NFT or artwork or whatever, it doesn't mean somebody else has less artwork. Like, I wish you could read more in between the lines of what he's saying, or just like analyze it like further, deeper. There are poor people, yes, but not because there's rich people. The status quo on Earth is everybody being poor. So it's a matter of how do we bring the poor people up to everybody else's standard, rather than confiscating the, like, it's so obscene that people have money. We need to confiscate that and give it to the poor. Well, these redistribution schemes always fail, always, because you take away incentive for people to make money, and then everybody suffers. That's obvious. That's the problem. And if these do have a unique problem, they're catastrophic for the climate, which is the only thing you'd hope that consumption of imaginary goods will actually not be. Yeah, here it goes. He launches a criticism of cryptocurrencies being use a lot of energy to mine or maintain. People who are better than others allow them to forget temporarily that they are mortal and will someday turn to dust like the rest of us. And whether their imaginary or material goods are involved, this kind of consumption is both one, sign that the rich are living empty, pointless lives, and two, sign that we have given some people far more money than they know what to do with, and need to be radically redistribute the wealth so everyone has enough to live on, rather than allowing some people to struggle and pay for food or basics medical care while other people speculate on imaginary land. Here we go. The Marx, Lenin, Stalin comes out. A sign of the rich are living in empty, pointless lives. I mean, that's kind of funny. I mean, like, are you're saying that to make yourself feel better? How come so many poor people aspire to be rich? I mean, if the rich are living pointless, meaningless lives, I mean, it's possible. I'm sure possible. Poor people have big families or living a very meaningful life. Okay, then what's your problem? You know, let the 1% live a miserable life and let the 99% enjoy their family or rich immaterial poor life. That's the literature on that is pretty. Actually, if you look at the happiness index of the world, it's people they like to point to, like, oh, the more money you make doesn't make you happier. But if you look on country by country, the more a country makes per capita, the happier the people are. And I think it's an idiotic trope that the rich are so miserable. Some rich are miserable, I'm sure they are. But they would have been miserable poor anyway, so who cares? But the goal of socialism is for everybody to be rich. But here you're showing a card saying that, hey, the rich are miserable. We need to take their shit. A sign that we have given some people far too much money. Not we have given. That's not how it works. You don't give people money. I mean, yes, there's some people that stole money, some people that inherited money. Yes, they were given. But that's a small percentage. Most people in America that have money, 90% of them, they actually provided value for people that earned their money. Well, all right. That about concludes it. NFTs are more interesting than this Nathaniel Robbins, what have you to believe.